In today's episode, I talk with my friend James Trenerry. James is a serial successful Pilates studio owner, and we unpack his thoughts, his methods, his mindset, and his approach to teaching Pilates and building a successful business, even through COVID. Stick around and hear all about it. James, my friend.
Yep.
Nice to be with you.
You too, mate. Is this it? Have we started?
Yeah, I think we have.
Okay.
Let's make it official.
Here we go.
So it's my pleasure to have you on the podcast today. And if you're me, you already know who you are. But if you're not me, and I don't know, maybe you're not one of your clients and one of the sort of folk in the Pilates industry in Australia who's familiar with your work, you know,
Yep.
who are you? So could you just give the audience a brief, you know, whatever, the 60-second version of whatever you'd like to share about your history, who you are and where you're at?
That's a complex question, Raf. Before I do that, I'm just going to share. I've got one real quick share. Long-time listener, first-time contributor, so really happy to be here on the show. I listen to the Pilates Elephants podcast every time a new episode comes out, and I make sure, well, I don't have a team anymore, but I make sure that I share every podcast with those around me to make sure that they have the most up-to-date information possible to make sure that they can do the best jobs they can do. So before I start with me, thank you for doing what you do.
On behalf of Chloe and myself, thank you.
That's okay, thank you.
All right, now with the formalities out of the
me?
way, yeah, who are you and what do you do?
Oh, look, man, to be honest, I like to think of myself as I'm just a guy that kind of ended up after a while finding his way in the world, and that was, I think, just by helping people get the most out of their health and fitness journeys. In terms of my journey, I probably started the health and fitness, operation in about 2013 in a professional sense, and left the corporate world to start on this journey that I had like a real deep desire to get involved in. I always found health and fitness to be something I was passionate about from a hobby perspective, but I guess I was in a role in a corporate life that I didn't find incredibly fulfilling, and in every spare moment I had, I thought about health and fitness, or thought about my own health and fitness. Anyway, so left all of that behind in 2013 and joined a national Pilates company, KX Pilates. At the time, there was only 3 of them. Managed to, I guess, travel Australia with the brand. After a while, I moved to Sydney and helped the brand launch there in Sydney, and then decided I wanted to move to Adelaide and I guess open up my own studio. So helped to launch the brand here in Adelaide. And now 5 years later, I've successfully, I guess, exited, for the moment, the health and fitness industry by being able to sell my studios to my former business partners, which has been really incredible, really incredible journey. Now that's a short summary, but I don't know, man. To be totally honest, I don't want to say I don't think highly of myself, but I've been very fortunate, I think, to experience a lot of interactions with people that I deem to be leaders in the industry and people who I look up to, I guess simply by doing what I thought was the right thing to do for other people. I've started with Breathe Education twice. I did my Cert 4 with you guys, and then very fortunate to be offered a spot in the diploma, which was incredible. I went from thinking I was good at health and fitness to realizing I knew nothing and then
Mission
relearning
accomplished
everything.
then. Yeah,
That's exactly right.
That was great.
Relearning everything, and then I guess trying to incorporate all of those learnings into, I guess, more of a general sense of what working out on a reformer can do for people, but also what working out in the gym can do for people, and other pursuits that they might have. Look, if I'm totally honest, I don't really like talking about myself all that much.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it for you,
Can
James.
you pick that? Oh, God, thank you. I was dying there for a second. I don't know, man. I just honestly, I just listen to awesome music. I try to make people have a good time, and I want to make sure that if I was to employ people or if I'm talking to people, they have the best opportunity to have like a good considerate amount of information to help them be the best that they can be in whatever that circumstance is. So if they're employed to be a Pilates instructor or a personal trainer, they have the best knowledge at hand to make an informed decision about how to be the best that they can be. And then if they're a client of it, have the best information on hand for the same reason, to get the most out of their time.
All right, you tell me if I get anything wrong here, right? I'm going to tell you your history.
Okay.
So, you like you said, you joined KX, which is Australia's biggest Pilates franchise.
Yep.
Presently, like 60 something.
I think it's like 80 now.
80?
I stopped counting. At one point, I could count them on my hands.
Yeah. All right. I have to update my mental map. 80 something. All right. Thank you.
I think so. Yeah.
And for a while, you were the state training manager in New South Wales. Is that correct?
I was kind of an understudy. I was an understudy to Chelsea Cameron at the time.
Oh yeah. Shout out to Chelsea.
Yeah, Chelsea Cameron. Yeah, I was kind of like her understudy, which was cool. She was great.
So and Sydney, New South Wales, which is Australia's most populous city, slightly bigger than Melbourne. I think it must be around about 5-6 million something people in Sydney. Anyway,
I think it's like 14. I don't know. There's a lot.
Nah, it can't be 14. Anyway, we can Google it. But
okay.
So, yes, you were involved in training and I believe helping set up or establish a few franchises in Sydney.
Yeah. When I moved to Sydney in 2015, I think at the time there was Surrey Hills, and I moved there with a bunch of other trainers from Melbourne, and I worked across Surrey Hills and Balmain. Kind of waited until Bondi Junction opened up, and then I was the manager and I guess head trainer of that particular studio, whilst also managing some studios back in Melbourne.
And the population of Sydney is 5.312 million, by the way, at the last census.
I thought it was way more than that.
Well, we just had a census in Australia a few weeks back, so that should be updated pretty soon. But I don't imagine it'll be a lot more. So, all right. So you were employed by head office. Is that the case at that point?
Like half. I was employed by another owner at the time to be the manager of that particular studio, but then also employed by head office to do some other bits and pieces. It's from that angle, it gets a little bit complicated because I guess I was just doing whatever I thought was necessary to do, and didn't often I didn't hand in a timesheet or anything. I just did what needed to be done.
Right, and so you started to say that you were involved, like you were managing the studio in Bondi Junction, did you say? Yeah,
correct. Bondi Junction.
And at the same time were involved in some way in some studios in Melbourne? Yeah,
correct. I think at the time it was Fitzroy, Mitcham and Northcote at the time.
Is that Milton Papadopoulos' studios?
Papadopoulos, yeah, Milton Papadopoulos, yeah. A really good mentor of mine, actually taught me a ton about business.
Shout out to Milton, by the way, if you're listening.
Yeah, ton about business.
All right, and so you were involved in like training instructors, or what were you doing? What was your capacity in those studios?
Yeah, well, I guess in those particular studios, there was a lot of training of other trainers, but also exposure to day-to-day operations about how studios should be run. A lot of let's just say at the time, Instagram wasn't a thing, so it was just Facebook marketing as well. A lot of quality control. And like other elements like scheduling and whatnot of those particular studios. Yeah, kind of like, so Milton was a very hands-off owner, and he let me do my thing, and then he did his thing, and we'd like connect every month or so to discuss how those things were going. So
So, you casually just dropped in on just Facebook marketing there, and I imagine a lot of our listeners would like to double click and find out what you mean by that. But I'm going to put that to the side for a minute, because the next thing you did was, the next thing that I recall that you did was you moved to Adelaide to start the very first KX studio in Adelaide. And at the time, just for context, if you're not in Australia, and, I'm in Melbourne currently, you're in Adelaide currently. But Adelaide is a much smaller city. Melbourne has got a population similar to Sydney, 5 million and a bit, something like that. Whereas Adelaide's more like, I think it's like 1.5 million. It's a lot smaller. So it's definitely a city, but it's not what you'd call a very large city, I guess.
No, I mean, if people go to the big smoke, they're flying over to Melbourne. Yeah. Even though we've got our own CBD, it's not the same.
And, Adelaide's that wonderful city that I've got a real soft spot for. Actually, I've got family in Adelaide, and I've got quite a few dear friends in Adelaide. I've been across to visit you
number of times
or more. In fact, I remember when you opened that first studio in Norwood. That was a fun time. But, with love, many of us in Australia who don't live in Adelaide, sort of snicker behind our hands at the people of Adelaide, how slowly they drive and how many churches they go to, and how they complain when it's peak hour and there's one car that goes past every 5 minutes.
Well, look, it's like a bigger country town, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. And I say that with love to all my friends in Adelaide. No need to send me hate mail. Now this is something I really want to zero in on, because at this point you went to open the first KX franchise in Adelaide, and not only that, but I don't know the exact number, but my guess it might have been like the 4th or 5th Pilates studio of any kind in Adelaide at that point.
I reckon there was probably like maybe 2 or 3 others, I think.
Yeah.
I think at the time, like, I don't want to get these wrong, but there was definitely Inner Strength Bar and Pilates. There was definitely...
there was Magda's studio.
Magda, that was in Melbourne Street.
Melbourne Street.
Yep, cool. And then there was...
Shout out to
a
Magda.
couple of... Yeah, Magda's awesome. A couple of other smaller ones. I can't remember if Form was open then, but some other small group operations were definitely around at that time.
Right. So in a city of let's say 1 million and a bit population, there were there were enough Pilates studios to service 100 clients, maybe 200.
Yeah.
And we Breathe Education, my company, we had run training courses a few times. We ran them with Magda actually, and we never really got them off the ground. Like they just and we tried a few times over a period of years, and we were doing really well in Melbourne and Sydney, and just couldn't get traction in Adelaide. And we had come to the conclusion it's like, Adelaide's just not ready. It's the population's too small. Pilates is not popular enough in Adelaide. It's just there's just not a big scene there. It's never going to happen for us. And so when you went across to Adelaide and you were like, "Hey, Raph, I'm starting up KX in Adelaide," I was like, "Oh yeah, this is going to be fun." Because I thought, like,
you know what, mate?
3 months later, you'd be back with your tail between your legs, telling me like, "There's not enough population."
It was probably you and every other person I told that I was going to be moving to Adelaide. Why? Why are you going there for, man? Like, just hang out here in sunny Bondi. I was like, no. You guys just don't know it. You don't know.
And so I remember, and I remember when I flew across, and I can't remember. It might have been like a few weeks after you'd opened Norwood.
Yep.
And this is 2017, something like that.
We opened in September 3rd, 2016. Yep.
2016. Okay.
2016.
And it was the classic business opening scenarios. Like, you had enough money to buy 1 tin of baked beans and a loaf of white bread,
I opened, Norwood with no money. I was broke. I was actually $40,000 in debt. I didn't have money for a long time.
and so you certainly weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth or anything like that, and so you went across there, and what I perceived as this very indifferent and small market, and I think everybody else thought the same. And you just that studio just really started taking off. It got really busy, and it seemed like just a few months later that you texted me and saying, I'm just opening my second studio. What do you think? Here are the photos. I was like, what? Second studio?
8 months. 8 months later. Yep. That was July 2017. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I was just sort of catching my breath after that, and you'd sent me the photos of the third studio. And then I think the Fit Space, which you opened up above, and then the fourth studio.
Yep. Well, between I think the one you're referring to, there was McGill and the Fit Space, and then in the same year I added another studio. That was Mile End, Unley, which was the second one, and then Mile End opened, which is technically the fourth location. Yeah. Yeah, and so and now you've exited, you've sold your interest in those studios, and what's that? 4.5 years that you. Yeah, correct. We didn't exactly get to 5, but technically August this year, so 2021. What are we in? 2021. Yeah, so just shy of 5. And so by any by any measure, I think that's spectacular. And not only that, but again, correct me if I'm misquoting the stats here, but I think it seems like to me at least 2 or 3 of the last recent years, you had at least a couple of studios in the top 5 nationally, in terms of performance in KX. Is that correct? Since 2017, within the top 5. So number 1 a couple times back to back. Norwood itself didn't ever drop out of top 3, and Norwood and Unley were number 1, and then the second year, Unley was number 1, and coincidentally, the last financial year, unofficially, I think Norwood was 3, Mile End was 4, and McGill was 5. Right, and so this is in a national franchise of 50, 60, 70, 80 studios, and a lot of those studios are in much bigger, more populous cities where Pilates was a lot more popular. On a per capita basis, there are a lot more Pilates studios in Sydney than there were in Adelaide when you started. And so, and so it wasn't just that you kind of started one studio that made money. It's that you started a studio in a place where no one thought Pilates would, work, and it really worked straight away. And then you started another one and another one and another one, and they all worked. And not only did they all work, but they were all in the top 5 or 10% of the whole national franchise, consistently. And so, and that's over a period of almost 5 years. So, it seems to me you're doing a lot of things right there. That seems pretty self-evident. And, anecdotally, I've heard instructors within the KX kind of multiverse talk about making pilgrimages to hang out at one of your studios and do a bunch of classes and learn from your instructors. And I've seen, on social media, when your instructors from Adelaide would go on holiday to Sydney or Melbourne or whatever, it's like I would see people going, oh, do you want to come and teach a guest class at my studio, and show us how you do it. So there was not only was the studio performing financially were the studios performing financially very well, but he had a fantastic reputation in terms of the quality of the instruction. And I it seems pretty obvious to me that those two things are related, right? That, it's not a coincidence. But, so you seem to manage to have this incredible synergistic ability to build not only, quality instructors, but also, a super high-performing set of businesses. And this is right through COVID. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and this is a 100% in-person bricks and mortar business. You know, this is not a hybrid online thing or Zoom classes or anything like that. So, you know, I mean, without spending, you know, 4 years to do an apprenticeship and, you know, follow you around and see what you do all day and, you know, all of that stuff, what I really want to do is you know, pick your brain for the, you know, what's different about the way you approach this and the way that you've done this compared to those other 84 franchise owners who weren't in the top 5, right? And the other, you know, 500 studio owners who have really struggled maybe over the last few years, they feel their businesses hit a plateau, who haven't been able to increase their sales or their attention or their attendance or hang on to good instructors or, you know, basically, like, what's your secret to success?
That's a tough question, Raf. That's a tough question.
Well, you must have noticed. All right. So now, here's the thing.
Yep.
You ask, you know, successful people, what do you say successful? And most of them say, oh, it's because I work hard. Right. Of course you work hard. I know you work hard. Right. But I think a lot of unsuccessful people also work hard. So,
The thing,
it's what you do that is different.
It does. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
So what do you see? What do you see? You know, I mean, you hang out with other studio owners. You're on Facebook. You're on Instagram. You see people talking. You go to classes at other studios. You know, what do you see as the what are the things that strike you as different?
Wow. I'm gonna just reframe a little bit of the question because I can't necessarily say what I don't really know what other people do, but I can definitely tell you what I've done, and by all accounts, yes, you're correct, it has worked. But to make a comparison between what I've done and what someone else is doing, I wouldn't be able to do that because for the most part, I don't look, and I try not to get distracted by what other people in the industry are doing or what they, you know, I like to keep my blinkers on, as they say, and I focus 100% of my time when I was in those businesses. 100% of my focus was always on what do my trainers need, and then what does my community need. And funnily enough, it's actually not a surprise that they both need the exact same thing. Okay, when I'm gonna have to go back a little bit and say a big part of the reason that I came here was a vision or a mission or a purpose. My own personal purpose was to come to Adelaide, and I thought to myself, I want to bring this to Adelaide, regardless of whoever else is here. Once again, remember, blinkers are on. I wanted to come to Adelaide and fundamentally change the fitness landscape here. And I thought to myself, that's 100% achievable. I try not to tell my things that things can't work, because that's not going to be successful. But coming here, I thought I'm going to fundamentally change this place because I wanted to, because I felt like I have something that I want to share.
I remember you saying that. Now that you say that to me now, I remember you saying that way back. You know, I think when we were having dinner across from, you know, KX Norwood, I think it was Norwood Parade. We're having. I believe I remember you saying that to me, and I was impressed at the time. And when you say it now, what strikes me is the parallel with actually Aaron Smith. That because like 6 years before that, when I was teaching in Little Collins Street in Melbourne City, Aaron Smith did our Pilates course. He'd just come back from UK or LA or something like that, and he came and did reformer training with us. And he was doing the reformer training, and he was telling me how he was going to open this whole chain of studios and have 100 franchises. And I was like, yeah, whatever, buddy, you know. and you know, he sure showed me. So it strikes me that, you know, there's a real parallel with you having this real ambition. Like, your ambition wasn't to open a studio and pay the bills. You know, your ambition was to change the industry.
Well, it's funny you say that. So, I mean, Aaron and I have known each other for quite some time, since we were about 16. He's, my brother-in-law's best friend. So, being around someone like him when I was younger, and hearing about his like international journeys and things like that, there was always something in my mind like, I really like, there's something about your energy and what you're saying that I can really tap into. And if I get a chance to, I remember saying to myself, if I get a chance to work alongside you, that would be amazing. So I do remember actually, I did some, like, part of the KX process is to do some shadowing. And actually I did some shadowing with Aaron. And, some of his best clients are there.
Teaching regular
classes. This is when he was still teaching. Yeah, correct. So this would have been in 2013, 2014 kind of thing. And I remember like these were his diehard clients coming in, and I had to do some shadowing with him on his prime time block. Every trainer's got their prime time block. His was Friday morning, 6 a.m. Like the legit diehard KX fans would rock up, and I'd be doing my thing. Anyway, a couple of the clients were like, oh, so James, what's this is going to be fun for you. Are you excited to start at KX Pilates? And, Aaron and I had already spoken about this type of thing. We said, oh, no, like, James is probably going to open a studio one day, and it's going to be great. And they're like, oh, that's going to be awesome. And I said, mate, I'm not going to be opening with just one studio. I'm going to have at least 5, at least. And he said, remember his response is, oh, cool, all right. So, there you go. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't, I coming from the corporate role, the safety net of the corporate career, there was no way I was going to take a jump from there to here without making this change significant for myself. Because I thought, if I'm going to move from this type of environment, which is very safe, into something that's very risky, from that regard, there was no way I was going to do it with, half in, half out. If I was going to do it, I was going to do it and be the, in my mind, I'm going to be the best that you can be at this. And, it didn't, like that, I'm going to swear, that pissed a lot of people off. But there was no way I wasn't going to at least try to be the best. And then, when the time came, I'd kind of learnt at the time all I could from Aaron. And then I worked with his first ever business partner, Ellie, and we kept learning, got connected with Milton, learned a different element of it. So you're learning different things with different people. And then obviously Breathe came along, and I thought to myself, well, Raf seems to be the best educator. How do I be better than Raf? First thing you better do is get to know Raf. Get to know Raf, get to see his thinking, get to understand how he puts these pieces together. Because, I mean, everybody knows that you're the smartest man in the room when it comes to Pilates education. But not just that, the way that you think about things and the way you can simplify concepts for people. It's always fascinating, like all of the Breathe alumni and the people that listen to your podcast, I'm sure. I thought, how do you get such complex ideas into something that I could talk to someone about who knows nothing about fitness, but I could explain it in such a way that just connects with people. So I thought, I better learn that skill. So then, obviously, I came to you.
So all right. So I'm going to sum up here and have a little meta moment. All right. So what I'm seeing as part of your strategy is you seek out people who have skills that you want, and you just hang around with them, and absorb by osmosis, and just try and not necessarily because we don't have we've never had big sessions where you kind of pick my brain about stuff as such, but we've hung out a whole lot, and we've had a whole bunch of conversations, and so it seems to me your strategy is not so much to sort of ask specific questions about what are the 5 steps to doing X, Y, and Z, but you just kind of hang out and get the gist of how someone moves through the world. Like you just kind of watch Aaron do his thing, and after a while you go, I kind of get how this guy does stuff, and then you can basically go and, not be Aaron, but you can do, you can get some of the effects that Aaron gets by just kind of the vibe of absorbing his who he is.
Correct. So I think it's about, I mean, I tend to just sit, watch, and daydream a lot when it comes to learning. So it's not necessarily about having everything, 100% correct all the time. But it's more about, okay, so this is the situation this person has been presented with. How have they navigated their way through that? I will reflect and think about that to then see if I can understand without asking too many questions. Because if I just get told the answer, I really haven't learned anything. I've got to figure this out for myself. So I do like to sit, observe, reflect, and then have a go at implementation.
You know what? Like, I have something very similar, and I've shared this on the podcast before. That basically, I've got mentors, and you've been somebody I've learned a lot from as well. So I want to,
thank you.
I want to reinforce that this is a mutual admiration society that we're in here, and we're both full members of it. And that so a lot of these people who I admire, like, I have the same process where I basically just hang out and watch them do what they do, watch them how they respond to situations, how they navigate things, etc., and try and get a sense of how they see the world and what that might be like to be inside their brain and looking out from the inside. And then I get to a point sometimes with a few people where I can just sort of think like, oh, what would James do here? Or what would so-and-so do here? And then I'm like, yeah, I know what James would do now. James would make the audacious play,
Totally. Well, I used to say to myself back in the day when I used to clean the studios at the end of the shift, right? I used to say to myself, what would Aaron do in this situation? Like if there was, like if it'd been a long day, like I was working the corporate world and doing KX at the same time. So there's like 60-hour weeks and they're like, tired. I'd do like, Wednesdays from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. or something. And then I'd go to like leave and there'd be something like in the studio that needed to be cleaned. And I'm like, nah, I'll leave it. But then I thought, no. What would Aaron do? If this was his business, what would he do? Of course he'd do the right thing. So that helped to instill a lot of a discipline. But from there, you sit, you observe, you watch, and then you have to give it an attempt. And once you've attempted it, you've got to see, or wait and see what the outcome is. And to be honest, you hope that it's wrong. Hope, to a small extent, that it's not going to work, because then you actually start the learning process. Tell
me what you mean by that. That doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, so say for example, well, let's just say there's too many variables for you to always do the same thing all the time. And if there's so many variables at play here, if you think this happened this time, well, this was the result I got this time, I'm going to do the exact same thing when the exact same question comes up, okay? And then you try that and it doesn't work. And you think, well, now I've got to come up with another. Okay, this is option A. Okay, option A worked last time. Let's try option A again. No. Well, I better come up with option B. Let's try option B this time. Oh, cool. Option B worked. Cool. Now I've got two options. And then you go through the process again. All right, I'm going to try option A. No. Option B. No. I've got to come up with something new. Option C. Boom. Works. So my other two attempts, which worked in the last scenario, aren't going to work again here, or they haven't worked. So now I've got to start building a set of solutions and a set of tools, or a bit of a framework around problem solving, which helps to navigate, I guess, the business, but more so the client focused environment. If you kept striking gold all the time by doing the same thing, you'd probably not look for other options or other alternatives.
Well, that'd be boring, wouldn't it? That'd be like, okay, James,
it'd be so boring.
I've got a job for you, and the job is you sit here and you press this button. Every time you press the button, you get $1,000, and that's the job. And you can press the button as many times as you want. Like, that'd be pretty boring pretty quickly.
Imagine if there was another button here, if we're talking, use the money as the example, and you didn't know it was just slightly off to the left, but every time you pushed that one, it gave you $10,000. And you'd push it. You wouldn't have to push it, 10 times. You push it once. This one takes 10 times the amount of effort. This one just takes one time. Boom. And then what happens is you figure out, let's combine these two elements. The next button you get is worth, I don't know, it just grew exponentially. This one's worth $50,000. Think, wow, I'm going to push this one just one time and then never have to push it again, and we're good. So coming back to that one, it's about really trying to diversify your thinking so that when you do have situations that you're presented with, you've got more than just one option to go for. And I think that's really helpful when it comes to the people-centric industry that we're in, because every time you walk into a room, say KX is 14 people in a room, that's a whole lot of problems you've got to solve. Okay? This person has exercised more this week than the person next to them. But this person is a more frequent visitor, so they have a different experience. And regardless of the class type, you've got someone who's brand new over here. So as a trainer, like this is a really great skill where now your problem solving ability extends beyond, oh, I'm going to teach a lunge today, and these are the words I'm going to use, right? If we take it to that level of a trainer. It's like, sorry, sweetheart, I don't understand the words you're saying, therefore, I can't do a lunge. I don't know what you're talking about. So then you got to develop a whole nother vocabulary of words that help this person achieve that goal of a lunge. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
It's a skill that's not just useful. So to say you make decisions and hope there's a little bit wrong is to build a broader framework. Yeah, correct. Of solutions that are going to help you day to day, because you're never going to be.
So sorry, I'm just going to sum up here.
That's a lot
all right. So the things I've heard so far, right? Because I'm writing a How to Be as Successful as James Trenerry book, and I'm just writing it as we go. And so the first thing is think big, right? So
yeah, most definitely.
Think about the impact that you want to have on the world, right? And so you talked about changing the Pilates industry in Adelaide.
The health and fitness industry, Raf, not just the Pilates.
And the second thing was you said get the blinkers on, right?
Yep.
And you're focused, on your knitting, right? You're not focused on the people next to you, what they're doing. And what you're focused on is what your trainers need and what your community needs.
Correct.
And it turns out to be the same thing. And then the third thing that I've heard is that you seek out people who have skill sets that you need and you learn from them by osmosis. You basically just hang out and let the essence of how that person moved through the world just kind of seep in through the cracks in your ear holes. And one day you can just go, hey, I know what Aaron would do right now, and I'm just going to do that.
Yeah, most definitely. And if I can do it better even. So, for example, if we go back to that, Aaron was the first person that I did shadowing with, and then I did some with Amy Skinner, who's the national training manager. And these two people at the time, they're like cream of the crop in terms of the KX Pilates world. And then you start thinking, well, I just don't want to match them. I need to be better than they are. Because if I then need to, if I've got this BHAG, this big, hairy, audacious goal, I can't just sit at the same level. I've got to figure out how to get above them at some point. So that's when you've got to bring in other resources and think, well, the words that they say aren't just what make them great. What else are they doing? Aaron was a really great entertainer. He always used to say, I'm not teaching Pilates, I'm putting on a performance. It's like, yeah, because that's exactly what people need. They need a fun and stimulating environment. But then on the other hand, you've got Amy who's, got all of this knowledge. It's like, oh, great, cool, let's take that. And then I need, coming back to yourself, it's like, well, the knowledge, the business sense, and the problem solving capability, cool. I need that. So,
yeah, all right. And so shout out to Amy, by the way. And
yeah, totally.
This is great. This is like a trip down memory lane for me, all these people I've worked with.
I tell you what, man, there's a whole ton of them. So you got to also give shout outs to the classics like your Kat Webbs and your Bianca Joneses and your Laura Sagers and your Chelsea Camerons of the world. All those guys. They might be the only ones I might look at and kind of like, oh, what are you doing? Let's see if I can learn something from you. Because I remember, a lot of those guys had the same the same journey. So kind of left what they didn't enjoy, found something that they did enjoy. And I was very fortunate enough to have like Kat Webb and Laura Sagers on my team for a little while, and Bianca Jones as well. So it's been really great to see.
Shout out to Bianca at Pilates Republic.
Pilates Republic, and she's killing it. She is killing it. I mean, they're all killing it. But that was always, I guess, really exciting to see. And they'll have different ways around problems to solve as well. But coming back to, if you don't have a huge goal in mind, or if you don't have a huge vision or purpose in mind, then I kind of feel like you're just going along with it. And like, to all the listeners out there on the podcast who feel like they're in a rut, it's probably worth asking yourself the question, why am I doing this? I taught classes for right up until like August this year, after 8 years or something. 8 years of teaching reformer Pilates classes, right? And then I hear stories and conversation with trainers who get bored after 1 year, after 12 months. And I think to myself, all right, why are you doing this? Because if there's an ability to sustain that passion for 8 years and then go on to do it a bit more after some downtime, and you've kind of stopped after a year, or you're starting to think that after about a year, I'd seriously ask some questions about why you thought this was a good idea to start with. Or like maybe it's time to make the change. Because I mean, I guess from my perspective, the big why, how do I fundamentally change the health and fitness landscape of Adelaide? That isn't about me. That has nothing to do with what I like. That's about them. That's about, okay, so I might get the ball rolling, but it's everybody else who actually ends up having to carry the load and do the work. So from there, now we're looking at, okay, so you've got this big goal. You need a few supporters on board. And this is where, like, I've got to shout out my partner at the time when I moved here, Catherine War, who's now Catherine Grookey. She opened, we had a little bit of a plan together. I'm going to move to Adelaide, and we'd only been dating for like 2 months. She just said, well, what am I going to do in Adelaide?
And shout out to Kat. Kat is awesome. And Kat's a women's health physio, and she was working in a hospital in Sydney. And she had like 4 jobs or something at the time. Yeah, and she moved here with me, and at the time she had a number of jobs. And she said, what am I going to do there? And I said, well, you're going to open your own physio clinic. She said, what? I said, yeah, I'm going to have a KX studio, and you're going to have the women's health physio clinic, and they're going to be in the same room. And they were. And, she opened her business probably a week after I opened mine. And, if anybody is ever going to start on a mission of having this big, hairy, audacious goal, you've got to find that first supporter. And I was very lucky that the first supporter was also my partner at the time. And, she worked as a KX trainer as well as worked at starting up her business. And then over time, she obviously had to give more attention to her business. And then, we separated but still remain friends. And if you don't have those supporters or those followers or a great network around you, then you're not going to be able to achieve those goals that you want to achieve. So I think I'm just going to keep going if that's okay. And you just jump in and ask. And then, how do you keep the momentum up, right? Because there's only so much you can do yourself. You've got to keep looking out for those little gems, little diamonds that help you keep the ball rolling. I might actually cry. I'm going to cry in a minute. This is like a therapy session for me. I'll send you the bill after. So,
oh man.
All right. So, I really want to unpack this a little bit more because there's so much gold in here. And even though I've been, at certain points, I've been, really an eyewitness to parts of this journey, and I've seen a lot of it on social media, and we've had a bunch of chats, on the phone, whatever.
Yeah.
But, it's still a lot of this is, I'm learning stuff as we go here. So, I think something that really has always kind of perplexed me from a distance, and I'm sure as heck it perplexes the shit out of everybody who's listening, is like, how do you, like most of us who run one business, right? I talk to a lot of studio owners, right?
Yeah.
Most people who run one studio, their number one gripe is, I don't have enough time, right? I'm chief cook and bottle washer. I'm grinding out X number of sessions a week.
That triggered me a little bit, mate. There's plenty of time.
I'm doing the books on my kitchen table at 10 p.m. I'm booking the clients into the sessions. I'm doing I'm cleaning the studio. I'm doing all the things. And you're a man who's not opened not one, not two, not three, but not even 4 studios. You opened the fit space as well. I think you had a hand in a couple of other businesses, like there's the Octane Coffee, there's the Infrared. I'm not sure if you've got a financial interest in Growth IQ or not, but you've got some involvement with that business. Like you've basically, you've started, I don't know, I've lost count, but getting up towards double digits
10
of businesses. Yeah.
I think there was 10. Yeah. I'm a hype man for some, like the Growth IQ, a bit of a hype man for some. But other ones, like either a silent investor or an active investor.
Right. So how do you build, and these aren't businesses that you just started and then they kind of petered out into nothing and, nothing happened or they failed or whatever. It's like you've opened really successful businesses and sustained them. So how do you build that, how do you, and you're telling me that you're teaching classes still, right? Now I know that you weren't teaching, you're teaching maybe 6 or 8 classes a week, something like that?
Towards the end it was probably, it kind of ebbs and flows, but towards the end it was really only 2 a week, and that was only for about maybe a month. But there were points where up until even the start of this year, I was probably doing 20.
Right. All right. So that presumably varies depending on people coming and going.
It varied. If a staff member left and it was, it wasn't the right time to recruit, then I'd just put the shirt back on and get in there and, whatever.
So, all right. So what is your, all right. So you said, you were a bit triggered and there's plenty of time in the day. All right. So we've all got the same 24 hours. So how do you use your 24 hours differently to build 4 successful Pilates studios simultaneously compared to somebody else? And this is not a criticism of anybody. Like, I'm genuinely interested to understand how you do it. Like, how do you do that? What do you do?
Oh, man. Well, I've probably got to start with saying I'm sure I've got some sort of chemical imbalance, which means I can have multiple tabs open at the same time. It's a bit of a circus in here, but I think the key word there is...
James is pointing to his head when he says that.
Pointing to my head when there's a circus in there. But it's delegation. Delegation, offering other people responsibility, putting people in positions of I don't like the word power, but responsibility, autonomy, having a lot of trust. What is it? It's being. I don't like this. It's just first thing that comes to mind. It's pulling the strings and not being on the strings.
Okay, so I want to unpack delegation, right? Because probably the second biggest, struggle that I hear from Pilates studio owners is I can't find good people, right? So I delegated this thing and they didn't do it right, or I can't find anyone who's willing to take it on, or I'm not ready to let go of it because no one can do it as well as I can.
Yep.
So what's your secret to delegating? What's your approach to delegating? How do you do it?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is, firstly, you've got to choose the right people. So coming back to that first little bit, the next person that I technically employed was Charlotte Griffin, who I know you've spoken to quite a number of times and is actually the founder of the Fit Space. I was just lucky enough to join the party. she was in the studio all the time, and then just what do you do with yourself that allows you to be here 7 days of the week? She's like, oh, I'm doing this thing, and I'm like a PT, and I kind of like manage this gym. I was like, oh, what? You manage a gym? I'll take you, thank you. I said, oh, like I'm struggling here, like teaching the 30 hours or whatever it was a week, maybe 30 hours a week. At Nord, we only had myself and 3 other people. Tapping her on the shoulder and say, hey, could you help me out? Because I really need a hand with this. And
all right, so all right, quick double click. Over the last 5 years, roughly what percentage of your hires would you say you've advertised for, and what percentage would you say you've just tapped them on the shoulder after the end of the former class?
Reading my mind. You must be reading my mind. I've never put an ad on Seek.
Seek is the Australian equivalent of like Indeed.com. It's basically a job search website.
Yeah, in the classifieds.
Yeah.
In Adelaide, I've only ever hired one person who wasn't a client. And that would also be the case.
Can you just say that again real slow so that the heavens can open up and we can hear the microphone? Yeah, go again.
I've only ever hired one person who wasn't a client over the 5 years I've been in Adelaide. I think at most we had about 70 trainers, and I've only ever hired one person who wasn't a client. And I dare say that is the case of all the studios I've worked at and managed. Yes, you have to start with, let's say, when you're starting a studio from scratch, okay, when you're opening KX Pilates Norwood in a place where no one had done KX Pilates before, yes, of course, you're going to have to hire people who hadn't done it, okay, because it just doesn't exist. And then you hope to God that you can convert them. I can tell you, you're very lucky.
Let me keep double clicking, right? So, I love this strategy, and we've talked about this strategy before, you and I. So you're telling me that in a town with a population of just a smidge over 1 million, I just looked it up on Google, that basically had no Pilates industry. Not in any way to disrespect that there was some great Pilates studios there before you arrived.
Great businesses here, correct, yeah.
Industry overall was not thriving, right? It wasn't like Melbourne or Sydney where it's like you can't go and get a loaf of bread from the corner shop without walking past 8 Pilates studios.
Mate, you had to look really far.
Yeah. So you arrive in a city where basically there is no infrastructure in the industry of heaps of Pilates instructors out there looking for jobs and so there's no one looking for a job as a Pilates instructor. And you're telling me that in the space of 4 years you opened 4 studios and you basically didn't ever advertise.
No, right. Correct. That's true. Yeah.
So right. So this is.
This sounds crazy, I know, but
So how do you identify those people? So you gave some indication before. So there's Charlotte Griffin, for example. She's always in your reformer class, 6 or 7 days a week. She hangs out after class. She wants to talk about it. She loves it. She's giving you suggestions, presumably. Oh, we could put the towels over here instead. So that's an easy one, right? She's obvious, right?
Yeah.
Are they all obvious like that? Or, what do you look for?
No, man, they are always obvious. And look, I think before you even get to this point, right, what's important is let's just go back 2 seconds and go to this BHAG goal. I want to fundamentally change the health and fitness landscape of Adelaide. And that could mean 1,000 things to different people, but what it means to me is I need to do the best that I can do to provide the best service to these people I absolutely can. And I'm not going to waver from the service that I'm going to provide. My standard is this high. If I can squeeze any more out of this, I absolutely will try to.
And what's your definition of service? Like when you say my standard is this high, what do you mean? How do you operationalize that? All right, so I'm working for you, right? It's my first day on the job. You're telling me we've got high standards. I'm like, what does that mean? How do I know if I'm reaching the standards?
Well, here you go, Raph. You would already know because you were a client.
Huh.
And you would already know the answer to that question. And this is where I'm coming to. If you provide the highest possible level of quality that you can provide, and it creates this environment that these people love, that's the reason they're coming. And then because they've been a client for so long, before you actually tap them on the shoulder and want to hire them, they already know what you're all about. So it's not about, hey, come and sit down and have a coffee. I'm going to try to tell you what I am all about. Because they've felt it now. They've experienced it now. They've had the emotion of it. They've seen the physical change of it. So by the time they go to put on the uniform, the hard work's done. They're already ingrained into the program. They drank the Kool-Aid months ago. So now it's just about, all right, how do I take you from being a die-hard raving fan to the best possible facilitator of this service that you can be? And then that's when it comes down to like the small things, like the people skills, or the technical application, or the critical thinking of it. It's those things whereby you as an owner or a manager have to spend the time training your staff. You can't just pick them up off the street and say, cool, you're going to match everything that's in my mind, and you're going to do the best. You're going to run the best Pilates, reformer class, whatever it is, CrossFit class that you can. And then I'm going to wipe my hands of you and off you go.
All right, so I love this. So you don't have to tell me what the standards are, because I already know, because I've been to 50 of your classes already.
Correct.
And so all I need to know is like, okay, where do we put the used towels when we're done at the end of the shift?
Yep.
And
Yep.
What's the best cue for scooter sort of thing?
Correct. 100%.
And all right, and so what percentage of your time, when you're, just say you own 3 or 4 studios at this point, last couple of years.
Yep.
What percentage of your time is spent in training people, and how does that look? Does that look like you attending their classes? Does it look like them attending your classes? Does it look like people following you around, like you followed Aaron around? What does it look like?
All of the above. So when I only had 2 studios, and there were, let's say, maybe only 14 of us at the time, 2 studios and 14 people. I myself then had the ability to go to people's classes and give them feedback after the class, or just sit in reception and just listen to them. I would produce video content for the team and post it on our team Facebook group page. What
would you give them feedback on? Like, give me an example of the kind of feedback that you would give someone. Like, just imagine, all right, you've just been sitting in reception. I've been teaching. I come out. Do I know you were sitting there? Did you tell me I'm going to come and listen to your class tomorrow night? Or you just
sometimes I would, and sometimes I wouldn't. Yeah. So, for example, if there was, here's the thing: if there was something that I needed a trainer to work on, whether that be the use of cues or being tactile, or was it musicality and atmosphere, then I would definitely say to somebody, hey, I've been around a little bit, and I've done your classes, and this is something that I don't think you're quite hitting the mark on. Let's spend some time on that. I'm going to watch, or I'm going to observe, or we're going to tag team this class, etc., etc. But then in some instances, I might have just been at the studio, just tapping away, and just like have an open ear out and think, oh, remind me to have a conversation with you after the class about that. And at that point in time, the measure was me.
That's interesting. I have a similar process, but because we're a 100% online business, we have a distributed team. We currently have 36 people, full-time people working at Breathe Education, and we're in all states of Australia. We're in the Philippines, the US. We're in Egypt. We're all Canada. We're all over the shop, so I can't sort of wander in and listen to people physically. But we have Slack, which is kind of a community messaging platform, and so we have a different channel. Channel for student success, for the sales team, for the training team. And so I can sort of, and we also have channels for our students. So we have channels where our students are engaging with our staff, and so I can essentially sit at reception, figuratively, and listen, but basically just go and snoop on our team, and students' conversations. And, a lot of the time I'm just like, hey, high five, gold star, heart emoji.
Yep.
freaking awesome. And then sometimes I'm like, yeah, need to have a chat about that.
Yeah, correct. Well, that's exactly right. And for the most part, and I used to say this to the team all the time. I used to start with an apology. If I'm going to say something, it's only going to be the sprinkle on top. Just assume that everything else you're doing is incredible, but there's just one thing I need to have a chat to you about. And I don't know if that was the best approach, but it was only. We were very fortunate that through the process of them being clients for so long and knowing what the whole culture and the vibe was about, it would only ever be the small, really technical things that helped them be the best instructor they could be, because they already had the personality. And for the most part, when you talk about how much time do you spend on training, it was all the time. That was all I ever did. Focus on training and then a little bit of Facebook, social media stuff and community stuff. Until we got to the point where we had, I think, there was Nord, Unley, and McGill, and at that point in time, that's too many staff. So, shout out to Aidan O'Sullivan, who became our...
Happy birthday, Aidan. It's your birthday today.
Yeah, happy birthday, Aidan. Yeah,
although by the time you listen to this, it'll be like your birthday was 10 weeks ago, but whatever.
Correct. But and this comes back down to, actually... I'm going to go back. There was two people who I hired who weren't clients, and Aidan was one of them, because I'd employed Charlotte, and through getting to know her, we were trying to organise a Christmas party. It's who are we going to... There's 4 people at this Christmas party. It's that can't do. Let's make sure people bring their partners. Do you have a partner? He's his name's Aidan. Blah, blah, blah. What does he do? He's a strength and conditioning coach. It's all right, can you ask him to come to this Christmas party? And as the story goes, towards the end of that Christmas party, we were doing a few Patron shots, and I said, mate, what are you doing on Monday morning? Let's have a coffee, because I want to give you a job. I didn't know him from a bar of soap, but I just knew that he was a really good guy. And through some conversations, I thought, you are going to be the best trainer that this goddamn place has ever seen. And through overcoming
now he is.
Oh, he is. He's been and gone, man. He's going to be the best competitor to breathe education you've ever seen, probably. But getting in, seeing the potential before they see it in themselves is probably one of the biggest contributors to success as well. Because you get to the point where if you look at the Charlottes, the Aidens, Alyssa Downies, I'll rattle off thousands of names which probably don't mean much, like Joanna Thomas and Nicole Lemke and Elle Caddis and all these people, right? They didn't know that I was thinking these things about them until the day came when, as I say, tapped them on the shoulder and what? Are you serious? It's yeah, I'd love for you to be a part of my team because you've got something I don't have. I might be the owner here and I might be the one who's carrying the most risk at the end of the day when it falls over, but you've got something I don't have. And these people need that, because I'm not the best educator in the world. I'm not the best at to-do lists. I've got all these tabs open. I have trouble focusing on things. I don't have the interpersonal skills to connect with everybody on the same level. I'm probably not that empathetic. I don't know. But it's all about, you see something in somebody and you think, you're filling the gap in my personality, or the personality of this business.
Right.
It's not my personality, it's the personality of the community.
Right.
I can't remember how we got to that, but I'm about to finish. When the job got too big, right, and I couldn't do it anymore, I said, mate, Aidan, you've got to do this job. Because 1, I don't have the time, and 2, you're way better than me at this. Way better than me. So, I don't know if I can. It's look, I don't care. You're doing it. and off he goes. We did a couple shadowing sessions, doing workshops, things like that. And then when the team grew, obviously we had our own training and development department, right? So that if we talk about delegation responsibility for a second, I could take that one off my list. I'd already taken off day-to-day operations from my list. I'd given that to Charlotte. And now I have to take off training development off my list. Oh, cool. I'll give that one to Aiden. And then it's about, well, what are the tasks that I'm not the best at, which I can then delegate to people who are far better than me at them, and I can focus at what I do, which, as silly as it is daydream. I have to daydream about where we're going as a team. And if I don't have the time to daydream about that and think about how do I solve these problems that are upcoming, then we're all stuck because everyone's just going to be running into brick walls. I think it's important to note here, though, that before this, I had a career in the corporate world doing HR. And being in a corporate environment like that, you see how big business works. Small business is the same as big business. Just has a different name at the start based on how many people you employ. But it's the same thing, okay? And then a national franchise and my mini network of studios is the exact same thing, but on a small scale, right? If you've got a small Pilates studio out in Whoop Whoop, it needs to operate the same way that a national franchise operates. It has to. It's got to have elements of training. It's got to have elements of marketing. It's got to have elements of finance. It's got to have elements of whatever, community engagement, volunteer work. Unfortunately, if you're a small operation and you don't wish to expand, here's the duality of that particular situation. Some people don't want to grow, right? Some people say, I'm happy with just one. And then you don't get the benefit of time if you don't reinvest and grow. Because once you grow the baseline, you then can start to create this like pyramid or hierarchical structure where you can start to step away. But to be able to step away, you need more hands on deck. And to get more hands on deck, you have to open studio number 2. And you're going to have to open studio number 3. And you're going to have to open studio number 4, because if you don't do that, and whilst that might seem scary, it actually gets easier the more you have, right?
Yeah. All right, hold on. I want to stop you there.
Okay.
It actually gets easier the more you have. I think this is such a paradox that is hiding in plain sight for people.
Yep.
That people are, and if you're out there listening to this going, hey, I've just got a one-person operation, I like it that way, great. Awesome for you.
That is fine. That is absolutely fine to do that.
But sure. the thing is, if you're out there thinking, I've just got this one-person operation and fuck, I'm so overwhelmed with just seeing my 20 clients a week, right? There's no way I could employ 5 team members and open a second studio and blah. It's like, actually, no, it's easier to employ 5 team members and run a second studio than it is to do it all yourself, because when you're a one-person show, you're the one-person band. You're playing the kick drum and the harmonica and the sousaphone and the banjo all at the same time. Whereas when, now, like, I'm in the same boat. I don't do the operations at my business. I wouldn't know how to answer the phone. I don't know how to cancel someone's enrollment or change their payment date. I don't know any of that stuff. People also, who are better than me.
It's important to know as well, like, regardless of how awesome people think you are, Raf, you don't have all the skills.
Like, I've hardly got any of the skills. Yeah.
That's right. Like everybody is flawed, and you need to complement your flaws with other people's strengths. Like that's the key there. But the most challenging aspect there in that regard is scaling with success. Okay, so it's very easy to say, oh, okay, so I'm going to open a second studio and off we go. The biggest learning I ever had was this is not a cookie cutter approach. And one of the things that really grinds my gears when people say, oh, you're part of a franchise. Like, how easy is that? So I'm sorry, but
but the thing is, not all franchises are equally successful, are they?
Well, I think that's what we're talking about right today. Yeah. Like today, it's not how it works, unfortunately. And opening my second studio, I thought to myself, how hard is this going to be? Like, we're in Adelaide. It's not that big. Surely people have heard of Cakes Pilates by now. Okay, and this is where it's like that check yourself moment. Unley's only 5 kilometers away.
It's not very far away, yeah.
Oh man, it's one corner. It's 2 corners, and that's a distance here, man. That's a distance to travel. And I thought, how hard is this going to be? And I'm thinking to myself the same thing that everyone. It's Adelaide, surely can't be that bad. Terrible. If we're talking like if Norwood in its like, if Norwood was hitting like $45,000-$50,000 a month revenue in its first, let's say 4 or 5 or 6 months or something, whatever it is, it was this thing was cooking, right? Unli was only doing like 5, maybe 6 grand a week for a very, very long time, to the point where Nord was having to pay for Unli to stay open. And I was like, this is probably one of the biggest learning experiences of my life. Not only from a, like, you know, check yourself, mate. Like, you thought you did well, okay? You did well. You're not like, are you a one-trick pony? Like, sort it out. And then, like, wow, how do I got to like rethink this strategy like today. Like, how do I fix this problem? Because, I mean, the team don't know this, only myself and my accountant at the time. But it wasn't paying bills, man. Like, Unli was not paying the bills for a long time. And what I had discovered was, and this is let's just say this is point number 1 of anybody who's looking to scale, role models and mentors are the most important asset in your team of trainers that you could hope for. I had left the Unli team to their own devices and not given them a leader. And I thought, I'll like check in every now and then, see how they're going. But they had no one to model off. I'd spent maybe their 6 weeks in the academy with them. And this is, I think, one of the biggest flaws that that studios have is,
and that's the academy, that's the KX Academy that trains new instructors in the KX method of teaching. Correct.
But the same can be said for, say, for example, if someone's just come out of the Cert 4 at Breathe Education and started their first job, with their first day with you, they're going to be shit, right? No offense to Breathe's quality of education, but it's the same with any course. You've graduated your accounting degree, and the very next day you get a job at an accounting firm. You don't know anything. Like, you're not good at your job. And they need care and nurturing because they need someone to help them integrate their knowledge and learnings to real life application. And that takes time, effort, and it takes years to do. It takes a good year. And unfortunately, you know, I had sort of thought, oh, how hard can it be? People know what we're all about, which they didn't. The team are great because I'd train them. You're not that good of a trainer, buddy. And like, why? I was kicking myself. Why doesn't this work? And I was like, dude, you can't just like kick the kids out of the house as soon as they're 16 and think that they're going to grow into adults. You've got to be there and help them and guide them and nurture them and answer their questions. And then it dawned on me, like, you need to constantly be giving information to your team and to your clients. And this is where we talk about, you know, them both needing the same thing. Say, for example, let's have a look at for a moment bringing a new brand like KX Pilates to Adelaide into an environment which everybody is thinking, small, sleepy kind of town, isn't really into like exercise all that much. I don't really know. So before you bring a brand like this here and hope it gets off its feet, firstly, you've got to teach people about why exercise is important before you can teach them about why reformer Pilates is important, before you can teach them about how KX Pilates is different than normal Pilates, right? And normal or other fitness offerings. So now at this point where, cool, so we really did a good job at Norwood because I was able to talk to the clients about how KX works or how the reformer works or how different types of exercise works and what the benefits are, blah, 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 blah. And this is all good because this is just coming out of me like verbal diarrhea. But then you have the team of trainers jumping over to Unli, which is the second studio, and they're only saying the words, all right, guys, let's put one foot on the ground here. Let's put a left foot on the ground and a right foot in the shoulder pad and let's do a lunge. And there's nothing else coming out of their mouth. I was like, well, how do you expect clients to obtain buy-in into this program if you're not actually providing them with any other nourishing educational information?
All right, so that's tip number, I've forgotten what number we're up to, but let's call it number 4, right?
Okay.
Big idea number 4 here. First one was think big. Next one was get the blinkers on. Mm-hmm. Next one was seek out people and learn by osmosis.
Yep.
Okay, and this one I'm going to say, well, the next one actually was delegate. you know.
Yeah.
And then the next one was find your people from within. Mm-hmm. And then, well, I guess we're up to number 5 or 6 or 7 or something here, which is that, and because I've been wondering about this, all right, so as you were telling me this story about, okay, Norwood's going great, 40 grand a month, freaking awesome, I'm really good at this is freaking easy, open another one, why not? And then the other one doesn't go as good. Now, I've been exactly there. I had that exact experience in Melbourne CBD. We had Breathe Wellbeing doing fantastic. Then we opened up Breathe Wellbeing, you know, part 2, a few blocks away. It's like, oh, fuck, this one's not working. You know, what's the go? And it was exactly the same scenario. And I'm wondering, as you're doing that, okay, so where do you who does sales in your organisation? I know you don't have, quote, salespeople, you know, but obviously it's the instructors, right? And so I think when does the sales conversation happen? What happens all the time inside class. Like, that's what a class is. It's a 1 hour freaking infomercial for doing more KX Pilates classes.
That's exactly right, my friend. And it's not about, it's not about, I'm going to say sales is kind of like a dirty word, but you're absolutely 100% correct. To the point where I developed a script for the trainers to know what to ask people on their first visit and know what the answer is going to be to the questions. So I think when it comes down to what's my superpower, if we're going to say my superpower is problem solving and thinking like that, I've heard every question that a client is going to have over the course of their health and fitness journey. And I've heard every question that a trainer is going to have across the course of the health and fitness journey. And you get to the point where you can develop the script that answers the questions that helps both parties get more fulfillment out of their time. So you can teach someone how to teach a great class, fantastic. But how do you teach people to tap into the emotional element and the behavioral element of why the hell are you here? Like, fair enough, you came here because your friend told you to come and try the class, and or you go and try whoever's class, they're a great trainer, sick. But there's no connection there. You don't connect to the word, put your left foot here, put your right foot there. You connect to the word, this is going to be beneficial because if you want to come this many times per week, this is the best pack you can buy. And the only time that conversation can really hit home is during the class. So you've got to get to a point where you are the best trainer who actually is just having a conversation with someone about their health and fitness journey. And that is it. Now, to get to that point, you've got to get so proficient at just knowing how it all works to realize, I'm actually not even teaching you anything. I'm not teaching you anything. Or I've done such a good job in the beginner's class that by the time you get to an advanced class, I'm just queuing tracks on my Spotify account to make sure the atmosphere stays high and trying to make you work like a dog, because I've taught you the fundamentals. I've told you why it's important. So now you've got the emotional buy-in. And now it's about understanding how strength training works, so you know how hard to push yourself. At the end of the day, I need to make my teaching or my role, and this is me doing my, what are these, inverted commas? I've made myself, air quotes, I've made myself redundant as a teacher because you're so good that I can now just have a conversation about how you get better at this and how this works. Not just works as in you push the carriage out in the spring stretches, right? This is how exercise works. If you load a muscle with mechanical tension with this much load, you are going to get strong. What happens if I don't? You don't get strong. Why am I here? To get strong. All right. So don't do that. Hey, like those 2 kilo dumbbells, that's what you use to keep the doors open. They're not going to work here. They're there because I have to buy them. Okay. Maybe you're going to use them if we're doing some long lever stuff, but your groceries weigh more than that. How does exercise work? I've got to, apply more stimulation than I do my normal everyday life. Your kid weighs 10 kilos. You pick him up. You better be picking up heavier than a 10 kilo dumbbell. All this other stuff has to come out, right? And also with...
Sorry. So this is gold, right?
There's so much in here, man. I told you, it's a circus.
All right. So can you just give us a little, either like a play back, a recording, or can you just give us a little role play of, not the last thing you did, like the education of the more regular clients, like, the benefits and ins and outs of strength training and health and fitness. But okay, I'm a relative beginner client, right?
Yes. Yep.
I'm doing my trial offer, right? Because most places have like an intro offer. It's 5 classes for $50 or whatever.
Yep, something
right?
like that.
Come and try a bit for a bit cheaper. Okay.
Yep.
And so basically a lot of places have a similar offer. And so basically what you've got when I walk in the door holding my little 5 pass, right, is you've got 5 classes, well, you've got 1 class really, because if you don't do it right first time, I'm not coming back next time. But you've got, if you do it right, you've got 5 classes to serve me the Kool-Aid and for me to drink it, right?
Yeah, correct.
And so can you give me like precisely what do you say? What tone of voice do you use? Like, how do you present that, right? So just say I'm lying on my reformer bed here. We've just done maybe some lunges or some feeding straps or whatever. You tell me what exercise we're doing, right?
Yep.
But sell me on why KX Pilates is so awesome and I should come back twice a week for the rest of my life. Bring me into that headspace.
Oh man, that's the tough one. So I'm gonna put a little caveat around this and say that everybody's needs are different, and everybody has a different understanding of their like personal limitations and their personal goals. So I don't think, I'm just going to say there's probably not one exact right way to do this.
Right.
But what's really important though, you've got to build rapport with your clients by understanding their needs. Why did you come here today? And if I can then teach this class and reiterate some of those things back to you, then that is meaningful to you.
All right,
and if
so
I can make this...
So how do you know why I came here today? Do you just ask me, or like what?
Hey, Raf, how did you hear about us?
Oh, my friend Jody comes and she just raves about it all the time. She never shuts up about it. So I thought I'd just shut her up and eventually just come along just to keep her quiet.
Yeah. So like, why does Jody love it? And why, like, what actually brought you here today? Does she say that she loves the burn? Does she say that, it helps her feel good about herself?
Well, all of those things. Actually, I was commenting on how awesome she looked in her dress the other night, and she just said, well, it's all those KX classes I do, but it's not just how I look now. My mental health is better. I'm thinking more clearly, feeling more energy. I felt fantastic. And she showed me her abs, and I was like, holy crap, So I thought, well, I want a bit of that.
Okay, fantastic. So with that information, I'd probably add some commentary around, well, you're right. Exercise is definitely a key factor in our positive image of ourselves or our mental health. But if it's abs you want, then you've come to the right place. Blah 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 blah. Something will come up, and then I'll make sure that we are definitely teaching a plank in this class. In my mind, I'm thinking, boom, first time client came here because her friend loves it. Why she love it? All these things. All right, I'm going to try to reiterate some of those things back to her. But then she said, let's say particularly, like she's got great abs or whatever that is. I'll make sure that this class has some specific abdominal exercises in there, which I know in my mind, like it's not just a wood chopper where we know, look, everything works your abs, but this is maybe a plank or a low plank or a high plank or something, some I don't know what it is, some teasers or whatnot. And I'll be saying, all right, guys, let's put on the blue spring. Let's get into a high plank. This is how you put it on. Hold that one. Cool. This is really great for your abs. And I'll be looking at that person, and I'll go over there and say, this is if I want to do, this is Jody's favorite exercise as well. She smashes these all the time. The key here is I want you to do this in Q2. You can't do any more, and then off we go. And then I'll just blah blah blah. Just hit home with. Okay, so this person has articulated to me why they're here. It's important because let's remember, they don't know how the reformer works. They don't know how the body works. They don't know how muscles work. So it's important for us to reiterate to them what the impact will be. If you do this long enough, you will get stronger in your midsection. Okay? This is going to work your abs. This is going to work your butt. This is going to work your arms. So those types of things, or like, you told me that you play like AFL or you play footy. Great. Side lying leg. This is going to help you kick the ball further. This is going to help you be more agile. I'm like, oh, great. This resonates with my reasoning as to why I'm here. It's like, cool. Now all you have to do is get over the fact that you won't be able to move well for about 4 days because you haven't done this type of exercise before. But when you come back, we're going to go over this again and again and again and again. And slowly by slowly, I'm going to integrate you into the program of understanding not only how the reformer works, but also how exercise works and the benefits of that exercise. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to make this as fun as possible without making you feel like an idiot. But eventually, I'm going to have to make you strong.
That was masterful, James. Heart emoji.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, man.
So it's really... it's really that simple that when I come into class as a beginner, or maybe, I come into class and you're standing, and presumably you're standing at reception, sort of checking people in and, totally. Looking on the computer and going, oh, this person's name is such and such, and you're like, oh, hi, Raph, I haven't seen you around here before. Is this your first session? Or I get a little green star next to my name or whatever if it's my first session.
Depends on
you. Tell me about you, how'd you hear about us, blah, blah, blah. And then we have that little chat, and that might be a 60-second or even 30-second conversation.
Yep.
And then you're like, great, well, enjoy the class, I'm going to look after you. And then you just reference back to those key things that I told you are important to me.
Correct. Yep.
And you're like, you reference back to my friend, and she loves these exercises, and she does these all the time, and this is what got her abs so strong. And if you keep doing these exercises, you're going to have the same result, and this is why you do it.
Correct. So it comes down a lot to psychology of the client and the behaviors of the client. So let's think about when they come in the room, everybody has the need. Well, let's say we don't have need. There are a need. One of my needs is to feel significant and acknowledged. Everybody wants that. Could you imagine walking in for your first ever class and not being acknowledged? First, second, third, fourth, fifth, I don't care how many classes there are, you do not walk into a room and not say hi to this person. You have to acknowledge them because that makes people feel good. People have enough trouble and confidence with exercise and feel like shit about themselves and think they're weak and all this other stuff without also feeling insignificant in a room of people, right? No one wants to feel invisible. So if we take it from, let's not even take it from the fact that I'm doing this because it's my job to do, to say hi to a person. Do it because, it's not about you at the end of the day. And this is one of those elements which I think a lot of trainers get caught up on. If you're running out of content to teach in your classes, you're not teaching it for the people in the room. Okay? How do you do this for 8 years? How do I not lose my sense of creativity or variety? It's not about me. It's about, there are 14 people in this room. They are all the creativity that I need, or they are all the variety that I need to make sure that they get the most out of their time. This is not about how quickly can I get through 50 minutes. What am I going to put together to get through 50 minutes? This is how do I make this time the most valuable for them? Because they're the ones paying the bills. They're the ones that need the help. They're the ones that don't know how to, or need the extra motivation to do it themselves. I'm going to say, man, this is a real sticky point for me. When people say I'm lacking creativity or I'm lacking inspiration, and there's 14 people in the room who each need something different from you. They're all here for a different reason. They all have their own concerns, queries, hang-ups, questions. They've all got something that you can contribute because that's why they're here. They need you.
I think that's such a powerful point, and it's like you say, it's that focus on other versus self. And it's like if you as an instructor see it as your job to come up with a creative flow that fills up 50 minutes, and it's got to be a different one than what you taught last week, well, pretty soon you're going to run out of ideas, right?
You will.
If you're just sitting there staring at a blank exercise book going, okay, what am I going? I've already done lunges. Oh, crap. I've already done teasers. Oh, crap. So whereas if you flip it and you think, okay, well, it's not about me making up a class. It's about looking at these people and finding out what do they need. Hey, James, haven't seen you for a couple of weeks. Where you been? Yeah, I've been unwell. I'm feeling really stiff. Hey, Amanda, How you been? Yeah, I saw you here yesterday. Yeah, I'm really sore from the big ab workout we did yesterday. Can we take it easy on the abs today? You know.
Yeah, correct. Yep. You've got to ask the questions. You've got to engage, and then it's about. And this is one of the other key elements I think to success is. I don't like the term instructor. I don't like that term. I don't like the term, whether it's a gym instructor or a Pilates instructor, a yoga instructor. You're a trainer. You are training these people to get strong or better at what it is, right? So you're not just facilitating a conversation. You're over there. You can see that they're not even breaking a sweat. So your job is to essentially kick that person's ass, suitably kick that person's ass. And that means, hey, whilst everyone else is doing something on a blue spring or a yellow or a red or a half or a full or whatever, this person is clearly either they're one of two things. They're not getting enough of a workout or they're getting too much. It's too hard. It's either too hard or too easy. And your job is to pick that up by observing, seeing how they move, and making the exercise more appropriate so they get to that point of fatigue or just before. Even better, just before fatigue. And this isn't about I need to be really careful with my words here. What if I told you, Raf, I don't actually like Pilates? What if I told you that Pilates... we exercise to get strong. Okay? That's what we should be doing. We're exercising to better ourselves. Okay? There are some elements of, and once again, air quotes, Pilates, which inherently prevent that from happening. And a lot of them, they take
like
away
the 1 kilo dumbbells?
Like 1 kilo, like 2 kilo, like anything below 4 kilos, mate. But also a focus on breath work, a focus on pelvic stability, a focus on neutral spine, a focus on all these other things outside of pick that fucking thing up as many times as you fucking can. I don't care what room we're in. Since when is it they're in a Pilates studio where all this other nonsense has to happen before you fucking move? You don't hear that, in the gym. You don't hear that at F45 or BodyFit or anywhere else. But as soon as you step into a Pilates room, it's the prerequisite before you even think about moving. Do this. And if you don't, it's wrong. And if you don't, you're going to hurt yourself. And if you don't, what are you talking? Anyway, so we're trainers, okay? My job is to know what you need, and it's going to be a scaled approach. In my beginner's class or in the first class you come, I'm not going to kick your ass. I'm going to make sure you feel good about yourself and you learn the fundamentals. As you get stronger or as you get comfortable, which is a cognitive thing, it's I feel good being here. Okay, I feel good doing this. Then I'm going to say, hey, you're doing really well. I'm going to try to make this harder. Yeah. Correct. I'm going to try to make this harder for you. What does that mean? That means a difference of resistance, a difference in movement, maybe it's multiple planes of movement at the same time. Maybe it's different tempos. Maybe it's all this other stuff. It's a variety factor now that I'm adding, which makes it more complex. And oh, great. So now I'm dynamically strong. What else? So, well, now we're going to get we're going to do it really hard for a long period of time. Or you are so strong, I'm going to push you to the point of you believing that you can't do anymore. And then I'm going to come over here and I might drop back a spring so you can keep going. Or I might put you in a position where I'm helping you, like a spotter at the gym, to help you get the most out of your time. This is the real difference that gets people as a client. This is where it's about them and not about you, because you're looking at them and thinking, where are you at your stage in your exercise career? You're at the point where you're not quite confident. Great, I'm not gonna thrash you. I'm gonna help you feel more confident about what we're doing and yourself, and then I'm gonna thrash you. Or it's all right. I can see that you move really well here on this machine, and I've looked at your account. You've come 20 times. I'm gonna smash you. And then it's about, well, okay, you need to be pushed to the limit every single time you come until you're gasping for air. My job is to make sure that that happens to you. Because if you don't, you're going to walk away disappointed and you're going to say, that was shit, but I also feel shit about myself because I needed that and you didn't deliver that to me. And I'm never coming back.
And this is really interesting to me because one is probably, I don't know how controversial that is for our listenership. Maybe very controversial for some, maybe not controversial at all for others.
I don't know.
But what interests me most is that I'm a little bit out of date with my knowledge of the KX brand. So update me if I get any of this wrong. But back in the day, KX, the word that I associated with KX was intensity, right? It was all about the intensity. And I remember Aaron's early advertising that he did when he was in Malvern in that first studio, that, it was like, it's all about the intensity, and it was just, the intensity was the word. Like when I think of Volvo, I think safety, Kleenex, I think soft,
Yeah,
like, KX, I think intensity. And also, is that still kind of a tagline for KX at this time? Do I see that on their website if I go to kx.com.au? Right, I've stuck you dumb, James. All right,
you've hit it. No, mate, I can't comment about what happens anywhere else across the country. But
no. All I'm asking about is if I was to go to kx.com.au, right? Mm-hmm. Would I see the word intensity on their advertising still or not?
I don't know.
Let's try it.
I don't know. But hey, look, it's not about.
Well, it's all right. Well, interesting, and this is interesting to me. And those of you who listen to this podcast regularly, we talk about KX fairly regularly because they're a really big and important part of the Pilates industry here in Australia. And I think just about every single time I've ever talked about KX, it's been positive. I really have a lot of respect for the brand and for Aaron and for a lot of the people I know who work in KX. But this is interesting to me that I'm looking here at the KX website. I'm at kxpilates.com.au, and above the fold here on the website it says join the movement, and then it says Kaizen experience. Which is about, excellence and, change for the better. Then it says 50-minute classes, full body workout, 12 to 14 clients per class. Then it says define yourself. And I can't see the word intensity anywhere. Did I imagine it? Did it used to be there back in the day? I'm pretty sure it was there.
Where are you going with this one, Raph? Look, I think one of the reasons that I've kind of stepped away from KX is we've outgrown each other. I think my philosophies of training have evolved a little bit, I dare say,
as you've become more educated, one in the art and the science of strength, and two, as you've become more educated in what customers want and need, right? What keeps them coming back?
Yeah, well, I think a bit further. Yeah. I think, look, upon reflection, with my team, it was really never by air quotes again the book. It was. It might have started that way, but it definitely didn't end that way. It was more about, a workout, more about pushing people to the limits. I guess it's more about what I thought made a great workout on a reformer. And I think this is where I kind of touched on before. I don't, as much as I've been in the, once again, air quotes, Pilates industry for a long time.
I've never
taught a Pilates class, man. I've never taught a Pilates class in my life. I wouldn't even know how to teach a Pilates class. I know what I've learned to do is make people very, very strong using a piece of Pilates equipment that's known as a Pilates reformer. And
if you
that
ask me, that's Pilates.
Well, it's definitely not clinical Pilates. But yeah, so
you know, I mean, I'm not trying to stir up any, acrimony, or controversy here, but I heard it's very plain, the passion in your voice when you talk about getting people strong. Yeah. And using the big dumbbells, not the little dumbbells.
Yeah. Well, look, if we're going to go down this path, mate, I'm actually like, I think the biggest pain point I have about exercise, group exercise in general, is it's not just in the Pilates environment that these prerequisites of XYZ happen. Like you go to a group class, no matter where you go, or you see things where either people aren't given the appropriate level of resistance to actually have a positive outcome, or they're told they have to do things a certain way, and if they don't, they're going to hurt themselves or whatever. And what that does, unfortunately, I believe, is it breeds this sense of fear around exercise, and it breeds this sense of all these other things, right? It breeds a sense of, well, I don't want to work out too hard like if we talk about, let's just say from a female perspective, I don't want to get like bulky, right? Let's just say that was something that happened. If I went to an exercise class, no matter where it was, and the trainer didn't give me heavier dumbbells or the more suitable dumbbell and said, this is how you're going to get strong, right? That person is never going to be in the position where they believe that that's, one, achievable, or two, see the result that myth they've created about using heavy dumbbells is true or not, right? So if you go to an exercise class and someone's doing a goblet squat, a grown human goblet squat with an 8 kilo dumbbell, by you not taking the right course of action, by giving them something heavier than that, you're feeding into all the beliefs that prevent them from becoming the best possible person that they can be. Now, this is not just what happens in Pilates environments. You see it a little bit, and it's a little bit disheartening because you also see things like if you don't do a deadlift a particular way, it's not going to work. I can't remember the last time I did a strict deadlift to pick groceries up off the ground. Okay? I didn't stand above my grocery bag and make sure that I had, air quotes, neutral spine, knees hip-width apart, tracking out in this particular direction to pick my puppy off the ground. Okay? I did it the best possible way I probably could. But, there's this thing about it where, and I get it, like as a trainer, you've got to provide some cues, you've got to add value. But it doesn't have to be all technical. Maybe it's just, I'm going to train you to be the baddest motherfucker you can be by helping you do things you didn't know were possible, by giving you the confidence and providing the environment in which you can achieve more. As a trainer, that comes from me providing you with as much up-to-date education as possible to ensure that you are in the best place you can be to help your clients. And from a client's perspective, it's, I need to provide that place for you. As a business owner, my responsibility is to make sure that my trainers aren't talking about pelvic stability, spinal alignment, all this other stuff, which then inhibits that environment from being created. And then from a client perspective, it's ensuring that hey, guess what? You need to be lifting XYZ amount of weight to actually see a difference. So if you're coming into the gym and you're just picking up the bar, that's great if that's the suitable weight for you. But it's unlikely to be that because you're inherently strong. I don't know where you got this idea that you're weak. And this comes back to the comment about not liking Pilates. Why has it got to this point? I know why it's got to this point because of treatment for injuries and things like that. But you step into a Pilates room and then it's about treating weaknesses as opposed to creating strengths. You know what I mean? That's a doozy. Like, I'm going to treat your weakness. Even the saying the words, man. Even the saying the words tells someone that they're not strong. It's like, nah,
Yeah.
we're going to get you really strong. Anyway, I don't know how we got to this point, but it comes back to, continual education of the trainers, which I think helps the client journey. And once you get to the point where you're now a trainer, you're not an instructor, but you're teaching these people all the things that they need to grow, that's when you realize, that's where they get the value, and that's where you get the value. So you're not thinking about, okay, how am I going to fill 50 minutes of time with a really creative session plan? It's thinking about, like, what do these people need to get strong? And that's it. And from there, once you can nail that across the board, depending on, it doesn't matter how many people are in your team, from there, it's all the peripheral stuff. It's about, all right, so I need to teach you how to see these things in your clients. I need to teach you the science behind that. But also I need to make sure the clients know this. So I need to teach you the words and have you say the words when the class is going on. But then it's also ongoing education for the team behind the scenes about, hey, check out this research article. Hey, check out this exercise. Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, let's test our knowledge on that. Hey, who's coming to the gym with me to do something other than reformer Pilates to know how strong you are so you can talk about that with other people? Or, hey, we've got this campaign coming up. Hey, let's talk about this. Hey, let's look at our studio statistics. All that stuff, like, that's important. But as a business owner, I was never interested in, like, the profits or the revenue and stuff. It was important to know, and I'd always check in and always say, hey, like, let's have a look at the statistics. But if I was to, like, I focus on the clients, if I focus on the trainers, and I make sure that they've got the best environment where they can succeed, and if they're fulfilled, then I don't have to worry about how's the business performing. Because if they're happy and if they're fulfilled and if they're getting strong, then they can do that for the clients. And if they can do that for the clients, then the system takes care of itself. All I then have to do is make sure I've got constant communication about, this is where we're going. These are the goals we want to achieve. This is why we want to achieve these goals. Remember the why. The why. My why is to train trainers, to train clients, and to create community. That was it. That was all it ever was.
You know what? I think I've got enough for my book now. And
I told you to be here for a while. We've been at this for a little bit.
Yeah, getting up for 2 hours. It's just about time to wrap up. But
okay, I don't think we've actually started yet, Raf.
Yet. What I've taken away so far is, think big, and you had, changed the health and fitness landscape of Adelaide as your big, hairy, audacious goal. And, that made it about the effect that you're having on people in the industry, not you. And then, seek out people and learn by osmosis, delegate, and to delegate you have to starts with hiring the right people who you can delegate to, and those people you find in the front row of your reformer class and hanging around afterwards because they want to talk about it because they've only done 7 classes this week and they just love it so much, and that's not enough.
Correct.
And, a big one for me, and I think, if I could put anything on a billboard, this is what I'd put on a billboard, is the salespeople are your trainers, and every class is a 50-minute infomercial for the benefits of coming to Pilates regularly here.
Correct. Yep. I would say that.
And it's not the generic benefits, it's the benefits specific to this particular client and why they walked in the door. So if you want abs like Jody's, it's this is how you get abs like Jody's. If you want to be able to kick the football further, this is how you learn to kick the football further. If you want to have less back pain, this is how you have less back pain. If you want to get out of your monkey mind, this is how you get out of your monkey mind. Like it's talking to the person's individual reasons for being there. The next one is if you're running out of content, that's because you're focusing on yourself, not your clients. And if you just look in the room and think, well, why is this person here? Why is this person here? How can I best serve them and progress them towards where they want to be and why they're here? You know, their reason for walking. There's like, you'll never run out of content. Just like we never ran out of content on this podcast, because we don't sit here thinking like, oh, what can we talk about today? We sit here thinking like, what would people want to learn? You know, what do people need to know from us?
Yep. And that's important to, so I'm just going to jump in there. It's important then to reiterate that, not just internally, but externally as well. Like, you know, if you are in the position where you need more business, then it's important to reiterate the successes of people who've come before you, not, oh, our class is the best class in town. Yeah. It's like,
Here's Jodie. She's really happy with her abs. Here's James. He can now kick the footy further.
Correct. You know? Or like you've got to solve the problems that they don't know they've got as well for in something. That's a longer conversation. But sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
And the last thing, you know, which I'm feeling another episode in the pipeline here, but is, you know, and I agree with you that. Well, firstly, I'd like to say that I genuinely think that if you get people stronger on a Pilates reformer, I'm sorry, that's Pilates.
Fair enough.
So, and I don't care whether you call it classical or contemporary or contrology or KX or megaformer or whatever. You know, as far as I'm concerned, that's Pilates. And the final thing is that I agree entirely that in a lot of situations in Pilates and elsewhere, like in rehab, I'm an exercise physiologist, I think in a lot of situations we underload people. Even in rehab, we chronically underload people a lot of the time. And, you know, it does kind of trigger me a little bit when I see people doing on Instagram, doing goblet squats with a, you know, 2 kilo dumbbell or something like that. Yeah, you could, you know, your legs can probably hold double your body weight. You know, adding another 2 kilos is not
too much. Yeah, for sure. I agree.
So, you know, I do feel like it's time to wrap up. But fuck, man, we've got so much more to talk about.
I could talk about how, you know, you've got to. Like another element of that is making sure that your staff are taken care of and their goals, like they're able to achieve their goals whilst in your tutelage, I suppose, or whilst they're here. Because guess what, mate? They can work at Coles and get paid to pack shelves, but they've chosen to work for you. And they can get money anywhere, but they can't get the same knowledge, care, and attention anywhere. And their goal isn't to work for you for the rest of their life. Like this is a stepping stone to something else, whether it be a stepping stone to being a great exercise physiologist or a stepping stone to being a great owner, a great like owner with you or an owner on their own 2 feet. It's once again, it's not about you. It's about how do I best ensure that these staff members or trainers get the most out of their time and achieve their goals outside. And whether that is you're providing them with business coaching and mentoring, knowing that they're going to leave you one day. Like a classic one, Lauren Sebastiani, Spring Studio, the first KX trainer to open, ex-KX trainer, I think, to open their own studio. You know, I've had such joy. And not to say not with like Charlotte Griffin or with Alyssa Downey, other business partners or anybody else in the team, like had such joy working with them on their own journeys. But to have someone put their hand up and say, JT, if you're out, I'm out too. And I've been holding on to this one for a long time. And I've only done it because like you were technically in the way. And to have her say, but can you help me? Like that's something else, man. Like that's some good juju, I think there. And, you know, to have people wanting to continue what they were doing, you know, that is like without you being there, like that's what I'm doing. That's what I did. Like I wanted to do that without other people, I guess, in the way. So now that you're in the position to help those people get it, like do their own thing without you being in the way, like that's something else. And if that's not what it's about, then I don't know what it's about, because like that's some good stuff, man. Some good stuff
Well,
there.
it seems, I mean, it's objectively true that you have changed the health and fitness landscape in Adelaide. I don't think there's anyone that could successfully argue against that point. So, I mean, there are so many people there, and I'm thinking of, Sophie at Mile End. I'm thinking of Margot.
Alyssa at Mile End.
Yeah,
Sorry, and then you've got Lisa. I'll do it.
Is Sophie at Glenelg? Where's Sophie at?
Sophie Coleman's at Semaphore. You've got Lisa Paulino at Glenelg and Port Melbourne. Sophie. You've got Margot.
Lisa in Port Melbourne, but she was from Adelaide originally, and she trained with you.
Yeah, she all this other stuff. And then you've got Margot, who is directly part of the team, who has now Brighton, Blackwood, North Adelaide, Tea Tree Gully.
Shout out to Margot.
Yeah, I don't remember what she's like. She's got tons, Charlotte, who's got obviously McGill now, and the Fitzpace, and Aiden, who's doing his own thing. They co-own that together now. And then you've got, and it's not about that, Laura Saggers has got Ryan's, and Bianca Jones has got Pilates Republic, and Kat Webb's got Good Time.
Good Times.
Chris and Jolene in Sydney. I worked with them for a while, and they got Bowman and Good Times. But it's not about people who just become owners as well. Shout out to trainers who just flourished or been given an opportunity to flourish because not just me, but an owner has been there to hold their hand and say, you are so much better than you give yourself credit for. How can I help you see what I see? How can I help you break through that? And that just comes from nurturing and guidance and being able to have vulnerable conversations with your staff. You need them to be better than you. That's all it is. Because if you don't want them to be better than you, they're not going to give a good. You want them to leave. You want them to be your competitor. Because if they're not, or if you're not encouraging them to do that, then you're not making them the best trainer they can be whilst they work for you. That means their clients aren't getting the best possible service whilst they work for you. You want to train these people so well that they want to open up their own studio because they've done the best job they can do with you.
Yeah.
And that's why wouldn't you want the best possible team? There's it makes no sense. It's a hard one, but of course your best trainers are going to one day say, I've had enough here and it's time for me to go. Because they're not going to work for you forever. And if they say, hey, I think I might want to open a studio, can you help me? I probably am going to cry. There's nothing that's the best. There's nothing better than that. And then you think, you know what? I would love for you to be my competition because now I have to stay on my toes. I have to be, as good as you now. So that's powerful stuff. I am crying. That's embarrassing. That's not embarrassing.
It's not embarrassing, James.
It's not. No, I didn't. That's not embarrassing. It is, man.
Yeah.
It's the biggest joy. The biggest joy is doing it for the other, for someone else. And I think but that takes time to, I did it for me when I was starting out. I wanted to be the best and I wanted to have the best classes and all this other stuff. And then you realize you're not making friends like that. You're not doing yourself any favors by behaving that way. That's probably from insecurities anyway, because you think you're an imposter. You go through that process, you go through that imposter syndrome stuff, and you come out and think, oh, it's actually okay not to know anything because you're better off being honest. And then you go and learn stuff. And then imagine if you took the time to actually develop yourself as a professional rather than hide behind this facade of, fake confidence. And then you just, boom. If there's one key takeaway from how to grow a successful business, no matter where you are, it's not about you.
Be of service.
Yeah, be legit like be the Pilates monk or whatever it is. Anyway, I reckon I think we've tapped out this one. I reckon, mate.
Good talk, James.
That was profound for me. I hope it was. But no, like, seriously, thanks for asking me to come on here. I do, like, yeah, it means a lot. It means a lot to me that someone like yourself will ask me to come on board.
It means a lot to me that you come on board. So, right back at you.
Totally. And shout out to, like, everybody I've had the privilege of working alongside and teaching classes to, you know, over the years, because, you know, it's been, I'm on a sabbatical at the moment. You know, I don't do this anymore. But to reflect on it and think about all the trainers who have worked alongside, or, you know, helped in some regard, or staff members, or, you know, even the people that we didn't necessarily get along. Like, I hope that they're doing well, and you've definitely helped me make some changes in my life. And yeah, it's the best goddamn, I tell you, man, the health and fitness industry is the best goddamn industry you can be in. That, and yeah, whatever it is that makes people feel good, man.
You've inspired me, James. I'm going to finish out by sending a shout out to someone that I don't get along with, but who I like and respect, and that's someone special, Mandy the Movementician. We've never met. We just know each other on socials, and we basically don't agree on anything. You know, she strenuously disagrees with just about everything I post. But Mandy, if you're out there listening, my hat's off to you. You're awesome.
Yeah, man. Everyone's awesome in their own way.
Because she always disagrees in a respectful and amicable way. You know, she's never sort of unpleasant about it. So I really appreciate that. And you know, you just inspired me there, James, by saying even the people that you don't always agree with. Yeah, I think that's really important that we try and use the campsite rule and leave things better than we found them.
Yeah, for sure.
And you've done that in Adelaide.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, maybe I'll come back. Maybe I'll do it again one day.
Maybe.
Maybe.
See you, James.
See you, Raph. Thanks for your time.